The sun dipped below the Los Angeles skyline, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The streets, lined with towering palm trees, cast long shadows as the city settled into its evening rhythm. Keanu Reeves cruised through the quiet roads on his Norton Commando 961, a sleek yet understated motorcycle. Unlike the flashy cars often seen in this exclusive neighborhood, his bike was classic, simple, a reflection of his own unpretentious nature. As he approached the gated entrance of his new luxury condominium, he slowed down, pulling up to the security booth. He parked his bike beside the towering gates covered in lush ivy, their modern elegance radiating exclusivity. Keanu removed his helmet, revealing his familiar yet effortlessly humble face. He offered a polite smile to the security guard, a man standing rigid in a neatly pressed uniform. Before Keanu could even greet him, the guard took one look at him, his worn leather jacket, his casual demeanor, and his motorcycle, and immediately stiffened. "Evening," Keanu said warmly. "I'm moving in today. Just need to get through." The guard's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You live here?" he asked, his tone polite but skeptical. "I've never seen you before." Keanu nodded. "Yeah, I just moved in, apartment 502. The guard crossed his arms, his doubt evident. "Keanu Reeves, huh?" he repeated slowly, almost mockingly. "Can you prove it?" Keanu blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "I have my lease agreement and purchase documents in my bag," he said. "I can show you if needed." Instead of nodding, the guard glanced at Keanu's bike, his lips curling slightly in disapproval. The judgment in his eyes was unmistakable. "Sir," he said, voice now firmer, "this is a high-profile residence. We don't just let anyone in." Keanu exhaled slowly, maintaining his composure. He had encountered situations like this before, but he hadn't expected it at his own home. Still, he chose patience over confrontation. "I understand," he said calmly. "Go ahead and check your system. I'll wait." But as the seconds passed, the tension between them only grew. The guard had already made up his mind, and this situation was about to escalate. Keanu sat patiently on his motorcycle, his hands resting on the handlebars as he watched the security guard hesitate. Instead of checking the system for resident records, the guard's eyes kept flicking toward the bike, the jacket, the casual demeanor. It was clear. He didn't believe Keanu belonged here. The guard shifted his weight and sighed, crossing his arms. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. Residents here don't arrive like this." Keanu raised an eyebrow, his patience still intact but beginning to wear thin. "Like this?" he echoed. The guard gestured vaguely at his motorcycle. "You understand, right? This is a luxury condo. Residents drive high-end vehicles. They don't—" He paused, clearly struggling to word his thoughts without sounding outright rude. Keanu's lips twitched slightly, a subtle mix of amusement and disbelief. "They don't what?" he asked, his tone still polite. The guard cleared his throat. "They don't pull up on a motorcycle wearing a worn-out jacket." Keanu exhaled through his nose, shaking his head slightly. He had always known people made snap judgments based on appearance. But here, at his own home? "Listen," he said, keeping his voice even. "I understand you have a job to do. But if you check the system, you'll see that I own apartment 502. I have all my paperwork if you need proof." The guard hesitated again, his expression tightening. It was clear that he didn't want to check. Instead, he straightened his stance, placing a firm hand on his radio. "Sir, if you don't move your vehicle, I'll have to call for backup." Keanu's expression shifted, not into anger, not into frustration, but into quiet disappointment. The moment stretched long and tense. The security guard was standing his ground, convinced he was keeping out an imposter, a nobody who had wandered into the wrong part of town. And Keanu Reeves just let out a slow, knowing nod, because in the next few minutes, the truth was going to hit this man like a truck. Keanu remained calm, but the air between him and the security guard was thick with tension. The security guard, convinced that he was dealing with some stranger trying to slip into an exclusive community, lifted his radio. "I have a non-resident refusing to leave the premises," he spoke into it. Keanu sighed, adjusting his grip on the handlebars of his bike. "So, this is how it's going to be." Still, he refused to raise his voice or argue. "Before you call for backup," Keanu said, his voice still level, How about you check the resident list? I told you my name and my unit number. The guard shook his head, still not budging. I don't need to check, he said firmly. People don't just move in here without the staff knowing. Keanu raised an eyebrow. And yet, I did. That answer didn't sit well with the security guard. His eyes flickered with irritation as he took a step closer. I don't know who you think you are, the guard said, voice lower now. But you don't belong here. This is private property. Keanu exhaled slowly, shaking his head. This was getting ridiculous. Before Keanu could speak again, the guard did something he would instantly regret. He reached out, placing a firm hand on Keanu's shoulder. A physical push, an attempt to move him back. And in that moment, the situation changed entirely. Because Keanu didn't move, he didn't stumble, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. He simply stared at the security guard, his usually gentle gaze now unreadable. The people watching from their balconies gasped. Some residents, already recognizing Keanu, leaned forward with their phones. They knew exactly what was happening, and in the next moment, the security guard would too. The second the security guard's hand landed on Keanu's shoulder, the air shifted. It wasn't aggressive, it wasn't a shove, but it was a clear mistake. Because in that moment, the guard finally noticed something. Keanu didn't react with anger. Keanu didn't raise his voice. Keanu didn't even move. Instead, he simply held the guard's gaze. And then, the first wave of realization hit. A few gasps came from the balconies above, where some residents were watching. A man standing near the building entrance took a stunned step forward. A woman sitting on a nearby bench dropped her phone onto her lap. Someone in the crowd muttered the words that sent the security guard's stomach plummeting. Wait, that's Keanu Reeves. The guard's blood ran cold. His hand jerked away from Keanu's shoulder as if he had touched fire. He stepped back, his entire demeanor shifting from authority to sheer panic. Keanu didn't have to say a word. The damage had already been done. The guard stammered, his confidence gone. You're... Wait, Mr. Reeves? Keanu's gaze stayed steady, calm but unyielding. I told you my name earlier. The guard's throat tightened. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a disaster. Before he could scramble for an excuse, another voice cut through the tension. A second security officer rushed over, his face pale with realization. What are you doing? He hissed at the first guard before whipping around to face Keanu. Mr. Reeves, I'm so sorry. We didn't know. The first guard stood completely frozen, realizing that every second of this was being watched. And now, he had just humiliated the most respected man in Hollywood. The first security guard stood frozen, his brain scrambling for a way to fix what he had just done. The second officer, now fully aware of the catastrophe unfolding, turned sharply toward him. Do you even realize what you've just done? The first guard couldn't speak. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Because what could he even say? He had just physically stopped Keanu Reeves, a resident of this building, from entering his own home. And worse, people had seen it. Keanu, meanwhile, remained completely calm. No anger, no confrontation, just quiet disappointment. The other residents standing near the entrance, now fully engaged, whispered among themselves. Did that guard just shove Keanu Reeves? Oh, he's done for. Does he seriously not know that Keanu owns a unit here? A few of them even started pulling out their phones. The manager of the condo complex appeared next, his face already a deep shade of red. Clearly he had just been informed of the unfolding disaster. He rushed forward, his eyes darting between Keanu and the first guard. Mr. Reeves, Oh my God, I am so incredibly sorry. Keanu exhaled slowly, finally breaking his silence. I told him I lived here, he said simply. He didn't believe me. The words landed like a hammer. The manager's face drained of color. He turned toward the first security guard, his voice sharp. You didn't check the resident list? You didn't confirm his identity? You just physically blocked a resident from entering? The first guard stammered, his face now fully red with embarrassment. I thought... The manager's glare sharpened. You thought you knew better than the system? You thought you could decide who belongs here just by looking at them? Keanu said nothing, because he didn't have to. The first guard was already drowning in his own mistake. The first security guard stood there, frozen, as every single eye in the lobby bore down on him. Keanu hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't needed to. His quiet disappointment alone was enough to make the guard wish he could disappear. The manager, now visibly furious, snapped his fingers at the second security guard. "Get him inside, now!" The second guard immediately stepped aside, gesturing toward Keanu with the respect he should have received from the start. "Mr. Reeves," he said, voice tense but polite. "Please, go ahead. We're truly sorry about all of this." Keanu nodded, then finally moved past the gate, walking into the building. But before disappearing completely, he turned back. The first security guard flinched. Keanu locked eyes with him, and in a voice calm but undeniably firm, he said just one thing. "Next time, don't judge someone by how they look." The guard's stomach plummeted, because he knew that wasn't just advice. It was a lesson, and unfortunately for him, it was one the entire internet was about to teach him. Keanu walked into the building, disappearing behind the sleek glass doors of his luxury condo. But outside, the disaster for the security guard was only just beginning, because people had recorded everything. By the time Keanu reached his apartment, the first videos were already being uploaded. Security guard blocks Keanu Reeves from entering his own home, instantly regrets it. Keanu Reeves stays calm after being disrespected at his luxury condo, class act as always. The comments came flooding in. This guy really thought he could tell Keanu Reeves he didn't belong? Biggest mistake of his life. The amount of patience Keanu has, I would have lost it. Imagine being that security guard right now. Yikes. Within hours, the video went viral. People demanded answers. Who was this security guard? Did the building fire him? Did he apologize? The condo manager had no choice but to act fast. The management team at the luxury condo building was completely overwhelmed. Calls flooded in. Emails poured into their inbox. The internet wanted answers. And the video? It had reached the news. Morning talk shows and entertainment sites picked up the story, turning what should have been a quiet night for the building into a full-blown scandal. The manager, already furious from the night before, wasted no time calling an emergency meeting. The first security guard, the man who had judged Keanu Reeves based on his appearance, now sat in the office, his leg bouncing nervously. The manager rubbed his temples, looking utterly drained. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" The guard swallowed hard. I thought I was doing my job," he mumbled. The manager slammed a printed screenshot of the viral video onto the table. "You thought kicking out a world-famous actor who lives here was a smart decision?" The guard's face turned red. "I didn't know it was him." The manager's eyes narrowed. "That's the problem. You didn't check, you assumed, and now we're paying for it." The guard's stomach sank. "Am I fired?" The manager let out a slow exhale. "What do you think?" The security guard sat frozen, his mind racing. Fired, just like that. All because he thought he knew who belonged and who didn't. But the manager wasn't finished. "This isn't just about you," he snapped, pacing the office. "The entire building is under fire. We have longtime residents threatening to leave. Future buyers are pulling out of contracts. Do you realize how much damage this has caused?" The guard's throat went dry. One decision, one misjudgment, had cost him everything. And it wasn't just him. The condo's reputation was in ruins. Online reviews tanked. People left one-star ratings with comments like, "I was considering moving here, not anymore." Imagine paying millions for a place that treats people like this. If Keanu Reeves isn't welcome, I don't want to be either. This is what happens when people judge by appearance instead of facts. Investors backed out. Media outlets kept running the story. And the board of directors? They were furious. The manager turned back to the guard, his voice final. "You don't work here anymore. Leave your badge at the desk." The security guard stood slowly, his face pale. This was supposed to be just another shift. Instead, it had destroyed his entire career. As the security guard walked out of the manager's office, head hanging low, the weight of his mistake fully settled in. His career ruined. The condo's reputation shattered. And Keanu Reeves, he had moved on. But the world hadn't. Meanwhile, Keanu, now fully settled into his luxury condo, was approached by reporters eager to hear his thoughts on the viral incident. His response? Classic Keanu Reeves. "People make mistakes," he said calmly. "What matters is that they learn from them. No bitterness, no anger, just a simple reminder that judging others too quickly can have serious consequences." But despite Keanu's graceful response, the internet wasn't so forgiving. The condo's management issued a public apology. New security measures were implemented to prevent this from ever happening again. And the fired guard? He disappeared from the public eye, his arrogance replaced by regret. The lesson was clear. Never judge someone by their appearance. Treat everyone with respect, because you never know who they really are. And most importantly, integrity matters more than assumptions. Keanu Reeves, he didn't need revenge, because justice had already been served. This story reminds us that a single moment of judgment can lead to lasting consequences. Have you ever witnessed someone misjudge another, only for the truth to reveal itself later? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring tales.